Good morning, everyone. Today we will be going through the following essay, which you were supposed to do as homework last week. This essay is about how labor force numbers in Singapore has gone up. Okay, the labor force participation rates have reached a record high as older residents and working age women join the workforce. Okay, so you're supposed to discuss the extent. Okay, please highlight the word extent to which the initiative of encouraging older residents and working age women to join the workforce is effective. Okay, for to what extent questions. You must, okay, in the antithesis, there's obviously an antithesis which tells you the other side, where you write about the other side, right? You need to give me other factors. You need to give me other factors which may limit the effectiveness. Is that clear? I repeat, for to what extent questions, you need to give me other factors, and in this case, other factors which limit the effectiveness of this policy. All right, so take note of the command word here, which is to what extent. Okay, for the introduction, what you need to do is to identify the 4 macroeconomic objectives. High and sustainable economic growth, low inflation, and so on, right? First, give me the 4 macro goals, because that's what the question is about, right? The question is about the macroeconomic objectives. Okay? So you can briefly tell me, all right, that this initiative would aim to increase the LRAS. Okay, it's okay. SRAS, yes, partly. Okay, but it's mainly about increasing the LRAS. All right, via an increase in productive capacity. Okay, so for the thesis, okay. So what you need to do is to tell me, to have some kind of topic sentence that says the initiative to encourage these folks to join the labor force is effective to help Singapore achieve its macroeconomic objectives, right? And then you can tell me about how it will cause the quantity of labor to increase, right? That's the key idea, because when you have more workers joining the labor force, the quantity of labor will increase, the size of the labor force will increase. Okay, there will be an increase in productive capacity. All these things are not inside the answers, okay? I hope that you jot these things down. Okay, there'll be an increase in productive capacity, which means that the economy will be able to produce more goods and services, right? The LRAS will increase, it will shift to the right. Draw the graph, draw the LRAS graph, show it increasing, and the LRAS curve shifts to the right. Okay, and when that happens, you mark out, okay, you do it now, right? You do it now, you jot this down, you mark out your full employment level of output, right? Show how the full employment level of output increases from YF0 to YF1, and the real national, okay, and that leads, the full employment level of output increases from YF0 to YF1, that is potential growth. And the real national income increases from YE0 to YE1, that is actual growth as well. Next, I just want to highlight that the increase in the labor supply will also bring about a fall in the wage costs. Okay? If you think about it, okay, let's do the demand and supply analysis for the microeconomic market of labor. We are talking about labor, the microeconomic market of labor now. Okay, so the wage cost is something like the price of labor, right? So when the supply of labor increases from S0 to S1, you notice that the wage cost will fall. Okay, and this decreases the cost of production for firms, right? Okay, you can add on to say how when the cost of production falls, the profit margins increases. Profit margins of firms increases, and therefore the SRAS. Okay, I know they just put here AS, but can you make a note that it is the SRAS that increases and it shifts to the right. Okay, actually when we say shift to the right, it means that it's a downward shift for this case, right? It increases, there's a downward shift in the SRAS. Alright, and when you draw that, okay, so everyone, please draw your SRAS graph right now. Okay, draw the SRAS graph, okay, and you will see that this, when the SRAS increases and shifts downwards, the real national income will increase. Okay? And the real national income will increase and the GPR will fall. Okay, SRAS 0 shifting down to SRAS 1. What happens is that the real national income will increase from Y0 to Y1. The GPL will lower from P0 to P1. Right? Okay, and that means when the GPL falls, it means that wage push inflation. Okay, I know they wrote here cost push, but take note that in particular it is wage push inflation. And when the real national income increases, okay, we talk about actual growth, right? It means that there's EG, okay, and at the same time it lowers cyclical unemployment as well. Now, take note that this increase in labor supply actually helps your exports to become more competitive. Did you consider that in your essay? Okay, so firstly, you talk about how with the increase in cost, labor supply, the wage cost will fall, right? We've already established that. Okay, wage costs fall, and this means that there will be a fall in the cost of production. Okay, cost of production falling means that firms are able to lower export prices. Okay, ignore this part about being cheaper than imports. Just talk about how firms will be able to lower export prices. Exports are more competitive. Okay, they are cheaper, and assuming that demand is price elastic, okay, assuming demand for exports is price elastic, quantity demanded for exports will increase by more than proportionately. Okay, ignore the part on imports, please. Okay. So, and because exports become more competitive, right? You notice that this will increase the export revenue of Singapore, right? Export revenue increases, X minus M increases, the current account, okay, improves. Some people use the balance of trade, that's also fine. The current account improves and the BOP improves. Now, at the same time, imagine this. You must always try to think from the firm's point of view as well, right? Now, if the firm sees that there has been an increase in labor supply that is driving down the wage costs, okay, wouldn't they be very glad about it? Because this would help to lower their cost of production when producing in the country. And this will be able to attract more foreign direct investments to Singapore, and this improves the capital account of Singapore and therefore the BOP. Now, you may be confused at this point to see why this essay states that it's a financial and capital account, but take note that some essay answers, instead of splitting up financial account and capital account, they might lump it together to form the financial and capital account, okay? But actually, when you talk about foreign direct investments, it actually belongs to the capital account, all right? But as I said, some essays lump financial account and capital account together into the financial and capital account. Now, for the antithesis of this essay, okay, you're supposed to consider the other factors which may limit the effectiveness. Okay, of the initiative, right? So you can say, that, with an increase in RAS, yes, there's potential growth and everything, but the AD should also be increasing, right? If the AD does not increase at the same time, what happens is that actual growth may not occur. Okay, and this increase in AD, whether or not AD increases, depends on many other factors, right? Okay, so such as business confidence in Singapore, right? And if AD does not increase, you do have your potential growth because the RAS increases, but you're not going to have your actual growth, and that is an important thing to consider, right? Okay, next, we talked about how with an increase in the quantity of labor, it's going to cause LRAS to increase, and there will be potential growth in Singapore, right? Okay, you see, the problem is that, right, Singapore is a developed country with mainly high-skilled labor and capital-intensive industries. When Singapore draws all these older folks into the job market, okay, and let's say housewives who have never worked before, all right? Okay, the problem is that some of them may not have the skills. They may lack the set of relevant skills required in capital-intensive industries such as the biomedical, pharmaceutical, and aerospace industries. They lack the skills, right? So even though, all right, there are more workers, they lack the skills, and that may create the problem, right, of underemployment. Okay, some of them may be employed, okay, but there might be the case of underemployment, okay, because they do not have the relevant skills that various vacancies require. Not just underemployment, but there's of course the possibility of a mismatch of skills between the old residents and the jobs available. Okay, actually it's a bit similar to just now, just that just now was about how if they do not have the right skills, they might be underemployed. But in this case here we are talking about the possibility of structural unemployment, that because they lack the skills, okay, because there's a mismatch of skills between what the skills that the old residents have as well as the jobs available, there will be the problem of structural unemployment. Okay, and so you see, you draw these people into the labor market to look for jobs, but they are unemployed because they can't find jobs that they can work in. Okay, next, I will talk about low inflation. All right, so we talked about how with bringing in more labor into the labor force, the LRAS will increase, it will shift to the right, it will resolve cost push inflation, right? But don't forget that demand pull inflation might also exist in Singapore, and it is something that, okay, this increase in LRAS may not be able to solve. Okay, one possibility of a demand pull inflation would be that, okay, maybe, due to the world economic recovery, there's an increase in FDI or investments in general. Okay, because investors are generally more optimistic about the economy, and this will increase the level of investments in the economy, causing AD to increase, GPL to increase, and therefore demand pull inflation, right? But you see, this increase in LRAS that we've been talking about so far, it cannot reduce the demand pull inflation, right? And so it may be limited in helping, or it will not be appropriate, or it would be limited in helping to curb inflation, in particular demand pull inflation, and to help Singapore achieve a low inflation rate. Next, I would like to talk about cost push inflation. Yes, okay, bringing in the old residents and working age women to join the workforce does resolve cost push inflation, in particular wage push inflation, right? But you see, the main cause of Singapore's cost push inflation is due to the import price push inflation in Singapore, right? Which this initiative does not resolve. Okay, what can resolve the import price push inflation is probably something else, right? Not okay. Which one possible way to solve import price push inflation is for Singapore to appreciate its domestic currency. So you don't spend so much time on this, but you're just evaluating by saying that this initiative can solve cost push inflation, but mainly just wage push. It does not resolve another key kind of inflation that Singapore suffers from, which is which is import price push inflation. And another possible way to solve that would be the appreciation of the exchange rate. Okay, and boys and girls, I think I've told you this before, that your 4 marks evaluation that you get for out of the 15 marks, there are 4 marks left for evaluation. The evaluation, right, can be inserted, okay, whenever possible in the middle of the essay or otherwise. That means in between the essay, right, you can insert clever comments. You can insert evaluative points that will help you to up your evaluative marks, your evaluation marks. Okay, and this is what I'm doing now. I'm offering an alternative way. Okay, so you notice, right, that under the antithesis, I brought in other factors which may limit the effectiveness. Okay, but I think I also brought in how this policy may not be able to resolve certain key causes of economic problems in Singapore. I also talked about how this initiative may not resolve the root causes behind certain economic problems in Singapore. Okay? So take note of this, right? So when you tell me why this initiative may be limited, okay, so one way I argued was how it would be how other factors may limit the effectiveness, right? Okay, I also talked about how this initiative may not resolve certain root causes behind certain economic problems in Singapore. For example, it does not resolve a key root cause of inflation in Singapore, which is import price push inflation. Okay, and it also does not resolve the demand pull inflation in Singapore as well. It only resolves the wage push inflation part. So I think this is something that you really consider, that you know that we have been emphasizing on for the entire year, in fact, about the root cause of the economic problem at hand. Okay, now let's go on to the overall evaluation. So you need to state your stand. For all overall evaluation, just state your stand. So my stand here would be, it is only effective to some extent, and I justify my stand by saying that, other than what I mentioned above, okay, Singapore's overall labour participation rate is already very, very high. There's a limit to how much it can increase to achieve long-run growth, right? You can continue to increase, but there's a limit to how much more it can increase, right? And I talked about alternative measures. So I talked about how, to increase potential growth, to achieve potential growth in Singapore, you can increase your quantity of labour. But something else you can consider would be the increase of the skills of the labour force via training and retraining. And then I went on to evaluate my evaluation by saying that, but the problem is that it is a costly investment and it's a heavy drain on government finances. Okay? I also thought that, it would be possible to compare the different ways government has tried to increase the size of labour force in Singapore. Okay, so I think that, when you think about how the government increases the size of the labour force in Singapore, a lot of people think about how they bring in migrant workers, right? A lot of migrant workers. But you know that this has the Singapore government actually faces constraints in this area because it has resulted in a lot of unhappiness amongst the voters, right? So this solution of increasing the labour force via just bringing in foreign workers may have negative effects, right, on the government politically, right? It has created a lot of unhappiness amongst voters. So as an alternative measure, what they actually did was probably to try to increase the labor force participation rate among Singaporeans. Okay, so I think that would be the end of this essay. All right. Please ensure that you have taken down the notes, which I will check in class.